Hello and welcome to the Daily Faded. I am Hetz. This is where we get faded daily and talk about politics and news of the day. Yes, just something to take the edge off the day, just something to reduce the cabin fever a little bit. I got some real serious cabin fever today. I was getting antsy. I had to get moving. Well, I've got a bunch of things to talk about tonight. There we go. My notes disappeared on me. Sorry about that. Oh man, if I start getting eaten by bugs out here at night, that's really gonna change my point of view on this. Anyway, how are you guys doing tonight? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying home and staying safe if you can. And God damn it, I hope this thing ends at some point. One sec. I hope you'll have a toke with me or a drink or a glass of milk, whatever it is you like before bed. So I'm going to kind of go a little bit randomly through some stuff. I'm going to... Oh no, now my dogs are starting up on me. Hold on one second. If I just yell at them really quick, really loud, it stalks them. I could not agree more. YouTuber grudge. I totally agree. It's all about toking up. So anyways, I'm going to go through some random stuff. Actually, let me start with, I'm going to start with what I've been starting with every night, which is cases. We're at 3.7 before I get into this. Somehow I feel like if I smoked during the if I smoke during while I'm talking about the case numbers, that's disrespectful. But if I smoke before it and after it, that's okay. Excellent. Stay up till 6 a.m. I totally approve. I'd like to do that. Anyway, so what I wanted to start with today, I'm sorry, I'm a little disorganized, a little disheveled. I think the big news of the day is the news that hit from Georgia about Ahmaud Arbery, 25, who was gunned down in what John Iadarola referred to as a modern-day lynching, and I think that's exactly the right way to describe it. I mean, this dude was just jogging, and on February 23rd in a Brunswick neighborhood in Georgia, a man and his son shot him down. This is from CNN, telling police later that they thought he looked like a suspect in a series of recent break-ins in the area. He was, of course, not armed. And there have been no charges against the father and son who did this. And they literally just followed him in their truck and then ran up on him and then pulled out their guns and started shooting at him. It's obscene. And they haven't been charged yet. This is an ongoing investigation, the Glynn County Police Department said in a statement April 28th, adding that it continues to gather and provide information to the DA's office that the case has been assigned to. 2 district attorneys have had to recuse themselves because the guy who did this is an ex-cop who they know. So it's Gregory McMichael and his son are the ones who, Gregory and Travis McMichael are the ones who chased this guy down. They grabbed a shotgun and a pistol and followed Arbery in their truck, police said. Travis McMichael, the driver, followed Arbery and then attempted to cut him off, the report said. Arbery turned around and began running in the opposite direction, the police report said. Or you could just watch the fucking video, which is all over the internet today. And it's one of these videos that I think we have to acknowledge. I think it's one of these things that we have to see. We have to watch it because we have to face up to the reality of what kind of world we're living in. We're living in a world where jogging while black is something that's going to get you a death sentence. That's just fucked up. That's just completely fucked up. And just because he's an ex-cop, that gives him some kind of immunity. And of course, the cops brought up, or I'm not sure who brought it up, but somebody, of course, brought up that he had a shoplifting charge against him when he was younger. Completely irrelevant. And that he was looking inside a construction site. He stopped to look inside a construction site while he was running. That was his suspicious act. So anyway, that's just complete bullshit. And we've got to do better. I don't know what, I mean, in this case, all you can ask for is justice because these two guys were psychos. But yeah, it is definitely a hate crime. They wouldn't have done that to a white guy. So I can't stand that. So I'm going to smoke a little bit. Moving on, the Ohio House passed a measure to limit the power of the state health director in Ohio. This is from The Hill this evening. Ohio Republicans passed a bill Wednesday that would curtail the powers of the state's health director in what was largely seen as a broadside against Republican Governor Mike DeWine's response to the coronavirus pandemic. The State House Republicans amended and passed a 2019 regulatory bill that would allow orders from Ohio Department of Health Director Amy Acton to last a maximum of 14 days. Should the bill become law, an order could only be prolonged if the Joint Committee on Agency Rule Review approves an extension. The bill also grants any person the ability to sue the government to rescind a health order without having to prove they were harmed by it. 58 lawmakers voted to approve the bill, falling short of the supermajority needed to override a potential veto from DeWine. 2 Republicans voted against the measure, and no Democrat supported it. What the hell is wrong with these goddamn people? What kind of morons are they that they think that health directors are they have a fucking fascist that they worship, who they have in the White House, and they're accusing health directors of being fascists. Health directors are simply telling the public what the public needs to know to save lives. That's all they're doing. This is scientific. Now, I don't want to live confined to my home for the rest of my life. And I'd like to not be confined to home as soon as possible. But I don't want to start leaving the house too early. I don't want to see a second wave. I don't want to see 3,000 deaths a day on June 1st. I don't want to see 200,000 cases a day on June 1st, which we just saw the CDC put those out and then take it back and say it's not true. So I don't want 135,000 dead, which is what the University of Washington IHME model is saying now. And that means health directors have to be able to do their jobs, and they have to be able to guide a state in a public health crisis. So this is just another example of how the Republican Party is a maniacal death cult. I mean, the Democrats are bad enough. I got very few nice things to say about Democrats, except Chuck Schumer's art. Chuck Schumer's art in his house, quite nice. I saw him interviewed on Morning Joe. I watched it so you don't have to. And I thought he had very nice art. Yes. So Chuck Schumer gets some style points, I guess. But so I have enough problems as it is with the Democrats, but the Republicans are, they're in la la land. They're imagining, they're living conspiracy theories. And it's the Trumpification of the party. The party is rotten to its core. It's rotten to its core. So, I frequently say, what I don't want next is a President Eric Prince. What I don't want next is a President Sean Hannity. I don't want the next iteration of Trump is going to be even worse. Which is why I think we need broad sweeping social reform to put the population at ease so that won't happen. Now, interestingly enough, at the same time that they pass a bill giving any Ohioan the right to sue the government, to sue the state health director, there was an article the other day, also in the Hill. Ohio tells companies to report employees who don't return to work as state reopens. Ohio will allow companies to report employees who don't return to work when their jobs become available as the state reopens, officials announced Friday. The Ohio Department of Job and Family Services set up a website for employers to report workers who refuse to come to work and emailed companies about it Friday. The department's policy indicates if people refuse to go back to work and their jobs are available, they cannot qualify for unemployment benefits. So basically they're saying you have no choice. You need to go back to work. You're not getting any more money. If you have an underlying condition, like, for example, I have weak lungs from smoking too much weed, so I have an underlying condition. No, sorry, tough luck. Force yourself out into the population. Force yourself to be open to exposure. Force yourself to be open to die. So they'll keep it open and they'll force you to go out. This is a recipe for complete and total disaster, and the Ohio legislature has no idea what they're doing. Luckily, he can veto it, and hopefully he will. I don't have much to talk about Trump tonight. I just didn't pay very much attention to Trump today, to tell you the truth. The biggest thing was that he said the task force will remain in place indefinitely, which is good. The coronavirus task force. I don't know how useful they are because Trump doesn't seem to listen to them all that much, but better to have them there than not have them at all. He did say they'll be focused on therapeutics and vaccines, which doesn't really make any sense because they should be focused on epidemiology. They should be focused on mitigation and containment, as well as vaccines and therapeutics. Trump doesn't want to talk about mitigation and containment anymore. They're gone. He's done with it. Reopen the whole thing. Reopen the whole shebang. Thank God I live in LA and we're not reopening everything all automatically here in LA. So, I want to talk about an article that's actually a week old. So forgive me if you've seen it. But before I get there, and it's about Joe Biden's VP pick, and he said that he'll pick a woman, and it's sort of about that, by Rebecca Traister in The Cut. But before I get to that, there was a lot going on Twitter today about Joe Biden's VP pick, and I saw some people tweeting that Elizabeth Warren, if Joe Biden picks Elizabeth Warren, that will not bring progressives in to vote for Joe Biden because she's not actually a progressive, was what the argument was that was being made. Kyle Kulinski said that if Joe Biden wanted to get his vote, he could make either Bernie Sanders or Nina Turner his VP. Nina Turner was one of the senior people on Bernie Sanders' campaign. In case you don't know who she is amazing. Former state senator in Ohio and also former city council member from wherever she's from. And part of the 96 the 96, the 16 campaign and the 20 campaign. And then Washington Post reported that Bernie Sanders has been somehow not backing Elizabeth Warren in conversations with Biden, according to people familiar with 3 conversations between Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. So what does all of this add up to? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. It makes no difference whatsoever. There is no one that Joe Biden will pick to be his vice presidential nominee who will get progressives to vote for Joe Biden. Some progressives will vote for Joe Biden. I think a lot of progressives will vote for Joe Biden because they'll take the lesser of 2 evils. But for the progressives who are not going to vote for Joe Biden because he's not progressive, there is no candidate he's willing to pick that would convince them. Because a candidate who supports Medicare for all goes directly against the big pharma and health insurance money that Joe Biden is financing his campaign with. For Christ's sakes, he won't even say that he'll legalize marijuana. I'm not generally a one-issue voter, but if he said he'd legalize marijuana, that would get a lot of votes. That would be enough to get a lot of votes. But you have to legalize it. You have to take it off of the controlled substances list. He's talking about decriminalizing it, and I don't know what that means. And I don't think that helps a lot of people who are rotting in prison right now for possession of marijuana. So, and not only will Joe Biden not pick anyone who will get those progressives, he also just won't do anything. He won't commit to anything that will make progressives feel, he is totally against pot under Marx. I mean, look at where he stood on the war on drugs his entire career, so it's just not possible. Like, Joe Biden and progressives are what is it, oil and vinegar? Like, they do not mix. Or is that oil and water? I don't know. Anyway, as I was thinking about talking about this, I thought, that said, if Joe Biden did pick Bernie Sanders or Nina Turner, and by the way, I don't think he should pick Bernie Sanders because I think it should be a woman. But I'd be okay with Nina Turner. Then I would have to think about that. I would have to think very seriously about that. But you got to show that there's some room for movement on policy. Because I don't vote for vice president. I vote for president. Although, that said, I'm afraid I cannot vote for Gloria de la Riva this year because her running mate is Leonard Peltier. I would vote for Gloria de la Riva. I agree with her 100%, but I would never vote for a candidate whose running mate was in prison, regardless of how I may or may not feel about Leonard Peltier's 2 consecutive life sentences. That's just weird. It's unserious. So the article that I wanted to get into with you guys was called, I stand corrected, Joe. Yeah, he just changed to saying decriminalization, but he's been against it his whole career. So can you even trust him? And the guy lies like it's going out of style, So and that's Joe Biden's effort to try and get young people. We're going to decriminalize marijuana, legalize it already. I love living in California. I love having legal weed, and I love weed. I'll admit it. So this article by Rebecca Traister in The Cut was called "The Biden Trap," and this was last week. So it's kind of old news, but I've been wanting to talk about it, and I didn't get around to it. And to tell you the truth, I wasn't all that impressed with the news today. So I thought today was a good day to talk about it. She starts off, it's called the Biden trap, and she starts off with a little summary of the situation, talks about Tara Reade, gets through all the details that we've been through before about Tara Reade. Yeah, who knows? Who knows about Biden? Um, but I do agree with you that we should let people grow and change. I absolutely agree with that. And anytime you convince someone who wasn't previously convinced, that's a good thing. So when Mark Cuban is talking about Marxist economist Richard Wolff's plan for America, that's a good thing, even though he's a billionaire, and I'm not a big fan of billionaires. Um, so anyway, she gets into the Tara Reade allegation and the many people who have come forward to corroborate it, and she kind of sets the stage. And then she continues, quote, and part of what's sickeningly clear is that if Biden remains the Democratic nominee, whichever woman gets the nod to be his running mate will wind up drinking from a poisoned chalice. Because the promise to choose a woman ensures that whoever she is, she will be forced to answer over and over again for Biden's treatment of other women, including the serious allegations of assault leveled by Tara Reade. I think this notion of the poison chalice is exactly right, because it is a bit of a deal with the devil uh, to be Joe Biden's VP candidate and have to deal with the Tara Reade allegations. Quote, Ocasio-Cortez was among the first politicians to suggest that Reade's claims were legitimate to talk about and deserved further investigation, for which Reade thanked her on Twitter. But since Ocasio-Cortez has indicated that she intends to vote for Biden, Reade has told the conservative website, The Daily Caller, how disappointed she is that AOC has chosen to toe the line. And on Sunday, she tweeted, "Those who remain silent are complicit to rape," and tagged Stacey Abrams, Kamala Harris, Tulsi Gabbard, Elizabeth Warren, Amy Klobuchar, Michelle Obama, Barack Obama, and Ocasio-Cortez. It was retweeted 6,000 times. Biden's critics on the left should be hoping for the selection of a powerful progressive to run alongside him. We already debunked the possibility of that happening. And perhaps succeed him whenever that might be. But any politician who might fulfill those requirements, whether your fantasies run toward Warren or Abrams or Barbara Lee or Ayanna Pressley, AOC is too young, will also tautologically be a politician who has taken an aggressive stand against sexual harassment and assault. So, on the one hand, these are women who left leaning feminists should hope Biden picks. They are women who themselves might, for extremely good ideological reasons, want to lead the country and see Biden's vice presidency as an opportunity to make his administration and thus the country better. Some, especially Abrams, have been very vocal about their desire for this job, which is itself a radical approach to voicing ambition. Yet, in putting themselves forward as subsidiaries to Biden, in accepting an invitation that he might extend, or even in voicing their support for his campaign, these women wind up imperiling themselves by getting tied to him and the mess of his historical shortcomings, often on exactly the issues that have driven them into politics. In fact, they are quite likely to have their own history of righteous advocacy held up against them, used to make them look like hypocrites for agreeing to be on a ticket with a man who has been credibly accused of behavior they have aggressively condemned, and as sops to a system that they are in fact working hard to change. But it's near impossible to imagine prominent Democratic women being able to give voice to this and still wind up with any sway within a potential Biden administration. So as we move closer to the abyss, remember that plenty of women never wanted to be here. And now that we are, we have no good choices in front of us. Um, you know, look, I just wanted to read that because I have strong feelings about the sexual assault allegation by Tara Reade against Joe Biden. I think it's really serious, and I think choosing the lesser of two accused rapists is not a good strategy for America. I really don't. Joe Biden's got a lot of problems as a candidate to start off with. He has trouble forming coherent sentences. He has a terrible record on policy. He has a terrible record on lying about everything. And he has a credible sexual assault allegation. And I've looked at all the reporting on it, and I believe Tara Reid. So I don't know what the Democrats are going to do about it. They've got a Joe Biden problem, whether they know it or not. So I don't have a lot to add to what she had to say. I just thought her words were really impressive and captured this question of how a woman on the left would deal with being the vice presidential nominee under Joe Biden, with Joe Biden, I should say. I don't have the only other thing that I would like to add to that is this also gets at the failing of the media to vet Joe Biden. They didn't do any hard journalism on Joe Biden for a year. They didn't look into his past. They just accepted him. And it was a really soft primary. There wasn't a lot of vetting of the candidates. And a lot of this stuff should have come out earlier. If a good reporter had interviewed Tara Reid when she made her first allegation of unwanted touching from Joe Biden, the right reporter could have gotten this story out a year ago, and we could be in a completely different place. And that place may not be someplace that I want to be. It might be that we would have Pete Buttigieg as the nominee, which is definitely not someplace I want to be. But at least we wouldn't have this mess in front of us that we have to deal with, and all of the hypocrisy of people supporting Biden and having said believe women, but not being willing to believe Tara Reid. And the abuse that Tara Reid is taking on Twitter from people who complained about Bernie Bros is absolutely disgusting and filthy. One prominent Biden supporter said that Ryan Grimm at The Intercept and Katie Halper should be investigated by the FBI, and I think Nathan J. Robinson at Current Affairs for their reporting on Tara Reid. Reported by the FBI. That's Democrats saying that journalists should be investigated by the FBI. Democrats. This is what the age of Trump has brought us. And so I need to smoke again. I just started watching Better Call Saul, and it's fucking awesome. I just had to throw that in there. And I hear it gets better as it goes on, so I'm excited about that. Anyway, look. We don't know what's going to happen in the next week. We don't know what's going to happen in the next month. I'm extremely nervous that we have not yet seen the worst of the coronavirus pandemic. I'm very nervous about that. And what do I mean by that? I mean that the New York Times did a study, and they showed that if you take the New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey numbers out of the national numbers, that the rest of the country is rising in cases and deaths. That's the average trajectory of the country is going up in hospitalizations, in confirmed cases, and deaths. And a lot of these places are not testing that much. And they say they don't need to test that much because they don't have that many cases. But the reason they don't have that many cases is because they're not testing enough. So it's entirely possible that the CDC prediction about 3,000 deaths a day by June 1st, it's entirely possible that that's wrong, that it was a draft, that it was incorrect, that it could be disowned. But The IHME model has shifted interestingly as we have shifted our behavior and as the pandemic has shifted within the United States. And the IHME model currently projecting 135,000 deaths from coronavirus is that's enough to keep you up at night. So my solution is tonight, Skywalker OG, and this will be the last one. Peace out. Thank you so much for tuning in. The Daily Faded. I'll see you again tomorrow, 8 o'clock Pacific, 11 o'clock Eastern. Stay home, stay safe. Please subscribe. Please hit the like button. And thank you everyone for tuning in, and a special extra thank you for my patrons at my tiny Patreon page. All right. Cheers. Thank you guys.